All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Yasmin Herrera, and I work at the Digital Nest, the organization that put on this awesome event. Um, I will be the technical moderator, and I'll introduce the presenter that's here with us today. But first, I'm gonna go over a little technical things. So you do not need to be on camera and microphone to join the session, but like I said earlier, you can be on camera and you can use the microphone to ask your questions live. There is also the chat to the right, and you can leave your questions there at any time, but Lauren will leave time at the end to answer those questions. And if you're extra shy and don't want to really go in the chat, there's a Q&A function where we can see, Lauren and I could see the questions, and she could answer, she could answer out loud or answer privately in the Q&A. So that's it for the technical stuff. Thank you, Lauren, for being here. And now I'll introduce our guest. So Lauren is a Houston, Texas native, currently working for Netflix as a technical recruiting researcher and inclusion champion, supporting Netflix game studios. Lauren is passionate about creating a more inclusive and equitable STEM industry by developing programs and strategies to bridge the gap between internal industry partners and underrepresented communities. She utilizes her recruiting and career coach skill set to empower, connect, and equip individuals of all tenures on their journey into tech as a career development lead for Netflix Latinx ERG or Employee Resource Group. She's repping the shirt, Somos. Latinas in Tech chapter co-chair and founder of Si STEM Puede. Please help me welcome Lauren Loera. My apologies. Lauren Loera. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you, Yasmin. Thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure to meet you all virtually. Super excited to knowledge share with you all. If you are comfortable in the chat, I would love to see and learn about you guys as well. So if you are pursuing a specific career path, feel free to drop that in the chat. It's always helpful for me to know like where to narrow in on the types of interviews you're expecting to have. But today we're gonna just give an overall just like shake off of the nerves and just some expectations that you typically see in the tech industry, or more so even any industry that you could eventually fall into. So we'll kind of backtrack a bit on some pointers on how to get that interview, and then highlight a bit if you are looking to move into a technical career, some expectations that you may need to be prepared for like any technical interviews, but overall just like interviewing FAQs, and of course like how to stay true and authentic to yourself during this process. Feel free to drop questions in the chat. Like Yasmin said, I'm always happy to pause at any time. If you'd like to raise your hand and drop in any insight or questions, I would love for this to be as interactive as possible. So let's jump into it. So we all know interviewing starts with your resume. So how do you get to that interview? You may have gone through a couple workshops that really dive into the essence of this already, but it's always great to just be reminded, like, how are you going to get to that interview? Resume building is a key indicator on how you're going to get visibility into those roles that you're passionate for or striving to be. And a lot of us are going to be in different phases of our career. So no matter what phase you're in, whether you're transitioning career fields or an intern or like new grad or even someone that's more tenured looking to up-level themselves, you don't want to cut your experience short. So there are multiple fields that you can really highlight to show the essence in that journey, because everyone's journey is going to be different and everyone's going to be able to show different perspectives and insights. So whether those are like high school projects or freelance work, internships, don't shy away from things like that, because those are always going to be super important for a recruiter to see. If you haven't really stepped into like any experience in the job field that you're looking to pursue, it's okay to start sunshining some things that are helping you get to that step. Are you doing like any volunteer work? Are you involved with any other communities? Like, how are you getting visibility into this career field that's making you passionate to want to pursue it? So whether or not like that means, you know, meeting the qualifications that may be laid out on the job itself, you never know like what transitional experience can still be qualified. So don't feel that you have to check all the boxes that show on that job description before you actually apply. We're always happy to see multiple perspectives, especially like non-traditional careers, taking women into the roles that we're recruiting for. So my recommendation is always having like multiple versions of your resume, whether that's something that's directly in the field you've been in, you know, something that really highlights all the key projects and internships if you are just moving into boot camps or new grad programs, or any like hard experience that you've had in the industry that you feel is going to be viable for you to be qualified for that role. So having a master resume that really lists everything out, and then creating like subversions for each application that you're putting yourself through, is always going to be helpful for us to really like narrow in on what we should be seeing for that role. And then of course, like we're living in a digital age, so having your LinkedIn prepared is always going to be very important. I would say as a recruiter myself, I majoritarily find my candidates on LinkedIn. Applicants, of course, are always going to be, you know, top of mind for us, especially if you're, you know, looking to get a job very quickly. We do keep that time indicator on the top of our minds when we're looking to seek for candidates. But when it comes down to actually like engaging and networking and even like finding people that could be prospects in the future, we do that all through LinkedIn. So if you feel really comfortable with your resume, it's really easy just to drop and fill in those fields to start getting yourself visible and staying on top of all of the updates that come across your journey in the industry. So you know, sometimes building out your LinkedIn is a lot easier than filling out that resume, which is completely fine, because LinkedIn does have a feature to convert your profile into a PDF that you can utilize as you go through the application process. So these are just top of mind things that are really going to help you get to that interview. But then now you're at the interview. So let's say everything works out well and you're ready to start preparing yourself for that interview process. So the application process is really going to be helpful, for one, because you do need to plan out your strategy. You want to make sure that you fully understand what you're applying to. So plan it out, understand the role. You know, it's really easy just to like click apply, but you really want to be intentional about that search, because when it comes down to getting that interview, they are going to ask you some really deep dive questions like, what drew you to this role? Why are you looking to transition? Like, what about our company are you really passionate about? So it's always helpful to start off with picking like the top 5 and really digging in. Apply yourself to everything that you feel is going to be viable for you, and then continuously follow up with any points of contacts that you may find along the way, even if it's just like a brief reach out saying, hey, I came across your application, we're interested, but we'll get back to you. It's always okay to follow up with them and see what's going on, because typically when you're moving into a new role, it's going to be very loud and chaotic when multiple people are applying for the same position. So making sure that they're not forgetting about you by just, dropping a message or a brief phone call, like, hey, just wanted to figure out what was going on. That's always going to be helpful along the way. So now we're in the interview stage. So preparing for the interview and just getting really in tune with what you're about to expect is going to be very critical. Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties here. So once you're in the interview process, it's time to start preparing. So once you start understanding the opportunity, you really want to start understanding what's going to be considered. It's okay to ask your recruiter, hey, like, I'm not really sure what is ahead in this interview process. So ask the right questions, make sure you understand like who you're going to be speaking to, what you're going to be speaking to these people about. Is it going to be technical? Is it going to require coding or whiteboarding, or is it going to be purely conversational? A recruiter should never be like a gatekeeper to what you need to be equipped to transition into that interview and be well prepared. So all it takes is really asking the right questions. When you do ask those right questions, there are going to be a couple things that you need to keep top of mind. Things that we look out for are going to be, how you deal with challenges. Are you someone that shies away from challenges? Are you someone that is going to really ask a ton of questions? Do you need to have your hand held? All of those things are going to be critical to how we're assessing you through that interview process. There are definitely going to be different stages to it, but it's all going to depend on what they can offer you at the same time. So if you feel like you're transitioning into this new role and it's the first time you've ever done it and you feel like you are going to need a lot of coaching, you're going to want to have like a mentor or someone that is going to really help train you and ramp you up. It's okay to ask if that's something that is provided, because as much as you want to be in this role, you have to make sure that they're going to take care of you at the same time. You want to make sure that this is going to be not only like a successful opportunity for you, but something that carries longevity. So that team is really going to dig in to see what stage you are in your career and what they can provide to you to ramp you up successfully. And just, taking it as it goes to be able to know like this is going to be the right place for you. Sorry, I'm not sure what's going on with my slides here. 1 second. So if they do come down to coding interviews, for those of you that are on an engineering path, coding interviews can be very complex and they can sound very daunting and scary. But the easiest way to really break that down is by 3 core pieces to coding interviews. What we're looking for is really like how you problem solve. Are you somebody that's asking the right questions? Are you a collaborator? Or are you someone that just takes the requirements and takes it on your own? Typically, we look for someone that's collaborative, somebody that's open to feedback and asking the right questions and receiving different answers. Sometimes your mind can change just by learning new information, and that's perfectly fine. So knowing how you problem solve through that coding interview is going to speak volumes to how you are going to be a team player, but while also still being very independent in your role. The more senior you get in that process, you'll start to see more data structures and algorithms. That's all going to come with the scale of the projects at hand. So being very comfortable with things like graphs and trees, big O notations, those are all things to always keep in practice. So you'll typically see learnings of that through boot camps, through like different courses throughout like the computer science or any other technical graduate programs. So just when you think that you're not going to see those anymore, you most definitely are. So keeping that fresh is going to be very helpful along the way. And even if you aren't moving into a coding style interview or not very engineering focused, it's still very important to really understand how problem solving works on a team, what their expectations of you are, and really showing key examples on how you go about problem solving on certain situations and scenarios along the way. So here are a couple of resources that could be helpful to you if you are looking to be in a more like technical focused role. HackerRank, LeetCode are always going to be different resources that you can do different coding exercises at all levels. And that even includes like early career, new grad, boot camp candidates, all the way up to very senior and principal level engineers. For interviewing.io, that really covers a large spectrum of different technical roles, whether it's engineering or product management, program management, analyst roles. They'll give you a bank of different questions depending on your career field to give you some preparation along the way. So what are the types of questions that they typically ask? Even if that's not something that you're familiar with today, it's going to be helpful for you to just understand what you need to dig into in those projects and internships or boot camps as well. Like, what do you really need to start getting familiar with? Cracking the Coding Interview is a book that's available online and at the bookstore, hard copies, digital copies. It's really helpful to really get examples of different coding exercises that are actually presented by FANG companies. So that entire book is filled of past interview questions and solutions and like different questions to prepare yourself if you're looking to move into a FANG company in the future. And then igotanoffer.com is really great if you're looking to start talking about compensation, if you're nervous about how you pursue conversations that way, what should you be expecting for a role like this, other scenarios as far as like what does promotional conversations look like, how do you ask for a raise. Those are always going to be top of mind questions as you're moving into any job. And they really do great breakdowns of different career fields and different locations, whether that's a remote role or if you're looking into moving into a different city or state for that opportunity. So highly recommend that site as well. I'm going to take a pause there because I do see a question in the chat. Someone asked, what do you recommend a boot camp grad does to stand out during tough times during this tough hiring time in tech? And that's a great question. I know it's really daunting right now. It's something I haven't seen before since I've joined the tech industry, but I would just say, networking is always going to be key. I noticed that you put like networking, attending events, applying, and it is really tough. But some things that need to keep you hopeful. It's just like, this is a tough time for everyone, and it's not something to take personally. We are seeing lots of layoffs happening in the industry, so the volume count of applicants and people to get in touch with is at an all-time high, and it can be really hard to keep up with certain messages and reach outs. But always coming to events, networking with a specific person, like always knocking on their door to keep you top of mind is going to be super helpful. You'll see a lot of interactions on LinkedIn with people posting different jobs. If somebody follows somebody who's often sharing jobs, follow them as well. Like all of the interactions, whether it's a reaction or a comment on someone's post, is going to bleed into like second levels of networking. So follow as many people as you can on LinkedIn. you know, connect with your dream companies and always keep like notifications on, and then finding like one point of contact there and asking for a coffee chat and setting up time to actually speak with them so they can truly understand what you're looking for and what stage you are in your career is going to be helpful versus just throwing your resume out there often. So I know it's like daunting right now, but again, it's a phase. It's a phase we're all looking to get through. So if anything, like making connections now is going to be super impactful once everyone gets over this hump in tech. Someone else asked, like, for those of you who had already started to pursue a certain career, what made you gain interest in tech and change your career choice? So I think that's a great question. If you all want to answer that in the chat, keeping those types of questions top of mind are always going to be essential, especially in the interview process, because again, we know everyone's looking for a job. We want to make sure we're finding people that are passionate about not only the role, but the company itself. So that's a great question. Thank you for asking that, Yolanda. Awesome. So hopefully you all had noted these resources down, especially if they apply to you. I highly recommend them. And if there's other resources out there that you've come across that have been helpful, feel free to drop that in the chat for everyone as well. So I call this Be a Star because this is probably the best way to get through interviews. When it comes to actually having conversations, we all come across imposter syndrome. We all kind of get stuck in trying to explain ourselves and not really knowing what kind of details to share or what explanations to share. So keeping STAR in mind is always super helpful with how you're structuring your sentences and your explanations. So S stands for the situation, so what happened in that scenario. If you're sharing an example, you want to be able to let them know the full story. Of course, not going over detailed, but giving them some context on what impact that led you to. So what happened? Where were you? Who were the people on your team? Who did you get connected with? Who were you cross-collaborating with? And then talk about the task, like what needed to be done. Was it a challenge, a constraint, a deadline? Were there certain issues that you needed to tackle? Like, why is this one example so important to share? And then the action, like what did you do? Did you take initiative on something? Did you have to lean into integrity to really tackle that challenge? And it's also really important to talk about me versus we. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But knowing what you did individually versus what the team was tasked to do is really going to shine the most, because we are interviewing you as an individual. We're not hiring the entire team. We want to know what you did specifically. And then most importantly is the results. Like, what was the outcome of that situation? Was there an achievement? Was there room for improvements? Did it save the company money? Did you, have a really like low latency deliverable? Like, what really came out of that situation that made this something worth sharing? And then something that STAR doesn't include, but I feel is always really important, is the data. Like, how did you know that this was a successful or unsuccessful scenario? Like, was there a certain ROI? Were there metrics in place? Like, what's the proof that showed that this was something that was attainable or successful in the long run? So being able to show that data lets us know that you have been very intentional about what you were looking to come out of that. It wasn't something that you just did just to do, but that you strove to make a change, and what did that change result to? So again, all of these things can really show us how you think big, how you really have like that bias for action, also how you're earning trust with your team and in the other individuals that you're working with, especially having integrity to just show, hey, I did something and it didn't work, but I learned from it. So I want to understand what went wrong. How do I make this better in the future? And being upfront and honest about that really shows that you're moldable. Like you can be a sponge on this team and learn new things. And then finally, being authentic in your interview is going to be what sets us apart from all the other candidates. We know most of us are coming from underrepresented groups. It's really hard not to like get into that imposter syndrome and feeling like you need to overanalyze. We really just want to know who you are and like what are you bringing to this team as a person, as an employee, as a peer. So, focusing on yourself and again, not what the team is doing, providing a lot of details with the data, and then just accomplishing that imposter syndrome. Like you have the interview, you're there for a reason. Like now is not the time to shoot yourself down. So there's truly something interesting about you that we want to continue digging into to see how you can best impact our team. So keep that in mind. But also just being confident, knowing that you know what you know and you don't know what you don't know, and that's truly fine. Again, it's super helpful to talk both about your failures and your lessons, because we want to know that, you're not perfect and there's still opportunity for growth for you. You're never going to know everything. So it's okay to talk about your failures as long as you follow up with something that you learned at the end of it. There's a lot of innovation that comes from just having our cultural backgrounds. Everybody is different. We all come from different places, different upbringings, different ideas. So knowing that that's something that can be authentic to you, can also be authentic to the team. So feel free to share a little bit about your cultural background and how that's caused you to have the certain perspectives that you have. And just know, like, there's no perfect answer. You are people being interviewed by people. So do your best. Know that you can, say whatever you know again, and then just understanding that you put everything on the table, and whether or not it works out, you did everything that you could. And something that I always tell my candidates as well is just like, just because we're saying no doesn't mean we don't want you as a person. It just means not right now. So just know that, you don't have to be perfect. Just understand like when the timing is going to be right. Also, it's okay to ask for help, especially through those technical interviews. If you get stuck, it's okay to say, hey, I'm not really sure what to do here. Like, I think I got stuck in this one part. Can you help me get through that? That's always going to be like an authentic piece to the interview, because again, you're not acting as a robot. You're not, stressing yourself out. There's always going to be somebody on the call with you, or if it's a take-home assignment that you can Google and research on, that's also a method of help. So it's okay to step out of the box sometimes. And then especially for people who are moving into these new fields, like it's always okay to say, I don't know. We don't want fake answers. We don't want things being pulled out of thin air. Like truly being able to say, I don't know the answer to this question. Lean into your best judgment. And again, that's always going to show us more authenticity versus, you just trying to fit a mold for us. So being authentic to yourself is also going to be more of like a reverse interview. So know why you want to work at this company. Interviewing is a two-way street. So not only are you there just to be bombarded with questions, like showing your curiosity and knowing why this company is going to be the right fit for you at the same time is going to be a full cycle experience, because they may have passions in different areas that maybe you're not passionate about, or maybe you have a passion that you really want to dig into that they can't offer for you. So it's okay to be understanding of what you're getting yourself into, And just because you need a job doesn't mean that you have to force yourself into something that's going to make you uncomfortable. So just know that you can ask the right questions. Know what's going on within that interview. Again, understanding who you're going to be speaking with, utilizing your recruiter as an advocate is going to help you get more comfortable with what's going to happen in those next steps. We have about 5 minutes left, but yeah, so at the end of the day, like, these are a couple of questions that you can ask as far as setting the right intentions, like work-life balance, their diversity strategy, growth opportunities, different ways that you can make impact as a Latina or somebody from your background. That's always going to help you get to that next step. But yeah, that holds it for now. So thank you so much. If anybody has a couple last minute questions, you're welcome to come off mute or raise your hand or drop them in the chat. Always happy to help.
I like to keep awkward silences long because somebody always speaks up, you know. They're like, oh, you know, I had something. So yeah. All right. Well, as you guys are thinking, I don't know, Lauren, if you do wanna, I see your LinkedIn on there. If you
Yeah.
wanna open it up for people to contact you.
Yeah, if you guys would like to reach out to me on LinkedIn, if you have any other questions, if you'd like to set up coffee chats, and if you have questions about interview processes, or just what's going on in the industry, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. It's helpful if you drop a note in that connection request to let me know that you guys are coming from Digital Nest. That'll always catch my attention, and of course, like, be able to connect with you a lot sooner. So I hope you all were able to learn something and feel empowered as you make that next step.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for all the tips. I love the being your authentic self slide. Because often we come in like thinking, we have to impress and fit a mold and everything. So thank you for that. Um, yeah. So we're gonna be going into mentorship one-on-one soon. So there you'll have a professional that you were paired up with based on your registration form and your interest there. So you guys will actually have a chance to have the coffee chat, no coffee, but that Lauren was talking about. But before that, everyone's gonna, I guess, please make your way to the main stage because we have a special message for you before you go into your one-on-one mentor session. So with that, just head over to the main stage, and you guys are gonna get pumped for your mentor one-on-ones. Thank you all for coming and joining us.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the event.
Bye.